Hey there, everybody. It's Paula with Dip Into Art. And again, I'm excited to guide you through the last painting in my Let's Get Beachy watercolor art kit. We're going to paint the beach sunset. So this is another sunset scene on the beach with some palm trees and a little path leading towards the water. I will be using all of the supplies you would receive in your art kit, and they are beginner supplies. And I will show you that you can paint with very basic beginner supplies, a very cute, fun design to get you started on your watercolor journey. So I hope you join me and let's get started. Okay, welcome to my workspace. So we are going to paint this beachy scene here. So it's another beach sunset. We are going to be using the 12 watercolor paint set that you would get in your art kit. And I've been using these to paint all of these designs. In one art kit, you receive 5 separate designs. And all of the designs are printed on watercolor paper. So no tracing, no drawing. You could just get right started and lay down some watercolor on this cute scene. And I will show you how I go about doing this using these paints. What you'll need on hand, of course, is a paper towel and a cup of water. And we will begin. I showed in previous tutorials on these kits that you can use wax crayon to kind of go over your designs, and that will help act as a wax resistant to the color and to the water, leaving you some white space or some white space on your paper. And that sort of acts as your highlight in your painting. So I'm actually going to do that technique on this design as well. I'm going to reach over and grab my wax stick. If you don't have a wax stick, this is just it is actually called a wax resist stick. You can use a white crayon. I think most everybody has a white crayon of sorts in their home somewhere. And these designs are for beginners or those who do paint a lot, who just want some freedom to do something fun and without the fuss of sketching and thinking about what to paint. So all I'm doing is just kind of scrubbing around the paper with some wax. I'm actually going to put some wax along the edge of this water line here. And then it'll give me some nice white space for maybe what could act like the foam of the water rolling up onto the sand. Maybe just a touch of sparkles in the water from your last light of the sun. Maybe a few sparkles in your palm trees. And maybe a little bit around the sun. And I think that will be good. And what's funny is you can't really see where you laid down the wax, so it's sort of a surprise when you get to painting. You may have forgotten that you laid down some wax and wonder, oh my gosh, why is the color not going on? Well, it's probably because there's wax laid down on your paper. So if you use a crayon or wax, just remember that you used it. Okay, so on this piece, we will start with our very light colors first, and we'll start with the sand and sort of this walkway. And this is going to be a very creamy pinkish light sand color. So I'll show you how to mix that color up. So we take our paintbrush out here. Make sure your supplies are set up comfortably. There we go. Have your paper towel ready so you can clean your brush and wipe off some water if you need to. And we're going to use all wet on wet technique for this, meaning the paper is going to be wet first, and then we'll lay down some color. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to mix my sand color that I want. Actually, kind of re-wet some of this pink color that's in my lid. I'm using the lid of this paint set as my palette to mix up color. So I'm going to grab some red. And I will be using this creamy white color, if you will. It's not quite white, it's more of a creamy. I'm going to use this to pale out that red color. It's a very pale pastel red. Let me get some more. Trying to get a good puddle of water or a puddle of color going. in my palette. It's still a bit red for me, but I'm going to keep working on getting this a very light pale pink to start. My light's sort of shining there, but you can see it's a pale pink. And then I'm going to add just a touch of brown. This is more like a burnt sienna color. And I will be mixing that in with the red. And we got this nice pinkish brown sand color. And you can make your sand any color you want. Maybe add a little bit more brown. Maybe a touch of yellow and some of this. And to activate your paints, you just use water. And I'll show you on a scrap piece of paper what this color looks like. I always have some scrap watercolor paper lying around. Just use this. So here's the color that I added a little bit of yellow to. It's a nice color. And then here's the pink. So I'll be using both of those colors for my sand. Okay, now we can go in with just water, maybe a touch of color on my brush so I can see where I laid down water. And you can just go right over your palm trees and your grass. Your palm trees are going to be a darker value anyway. Can go right over your path. Really just sort of go over all of your lines down here. I'm going to work on the sand first. And then we'll move up into the sky. I want to get the sky on before the water because we're going to have a bit of reflection of the sky in the water. And to have your sky down first kind of helps you know where to lay down some of that sky color in your water to match the reflection. Okay, so I've got my paper pretty wet. So I'm going to start with one of these colors, it doesn't matter which one, and just move along, kind of mixing them up, varying the color a bit. Some of the pink, some of the brown, mixture of both. And since our paper is wet, the colors will blend together. And go just along the path here. Just getting the whole thing down with the same colors. And that is a good start for your sand. These are very light, what we call watercolor washes on your paper, meaning there's not some whole lot of pigment. We're doing a very light wash over these in color. And this is just showing you how you can get started, and you can add more color as you go. You can add more layers. Just remember when you're layering color, if you want to deepen the color, you can either keep dropping in color while the paper is still wet, or you wait for it to dry and you go over the painting again with sort of a darker value of the same colors you used, or vary up the colors if you want. Touch of brown. So I'm mixing up a bit more color on here, and I'm going to add some, see how it's not quite dry yet, so I'm going to add some more color, maybe some darker spots here and there. A little bit more brown. Okay. Maybe some brown on the fence post. Eventually we will paint these fence posts once the painting's dry. But I'll go ahead and lay down some dark color on them just to mark them out. Like that. My light's very bright in here. Maybe we grab some more of the brown and some more of the yellow and get some yellow into our sand, yellowish brown, brownish yellow right here along the shoreline where the water meets the sand. maybe just some highlights of yellow where the sun might be hitting the sand, just like this. And the sun will probably be hitting the path as well, so we'll drop some yellow into the path. Like so. Maybe add a darker brown to the path here. Sort of drop the color in little droplets around the path and fence posts. It looks a bit like there's hills of sand. It gives it a little bit of texture. And I've got some wax on there too, so it's got given me a little bit of white space, so it adds another dimension. You can also drop, while the paint is still wet, drop some little spots in the sand. If it's too wet, these spots will bleed out, but it will still add some dimension. But if it's a little dry, they'll stay in place a bit better. So we're just kind of, let me go along the grassy areas, like so. Maybe along the bottom of the palm trees, in between. And the other thing you can do to add some texture is just drop some water. Maybe you've got too many, maybe your spots are too spotty. You could just grab some water and smooth them out a bit. A little bit more between the and I'm going to leave the edges of my paper a little bit rough. I'm not worried about making it all the way down to the edge. You can if you want, but I sort of like the watercolor look of just watercolor kind of spreading along the edges. Okay, so that's it for the sand color. Now we'll go straight into the sky and we'll do the same thing. Let's pick our colors for the sky. So we're going to have more of a bright yellow and orange sky on this one. So wet your palette, swirl your brush around the paint until you get a nice puddle of this bright yellow. And there's some nice bright yellow. And get some orange. Drop that right here. Squeak it. Get some more water, more color. Maybe we'll add a touch of red in places. This red throws a little bit of a pink hue. I'll just place it anywhere, right? Maybe in this corner here. These colors are going to mix anyway, so I'm not too worried about it mixing on my palette. And then we'll go right up into the sky. So I'll start at the top left here. And I do have a little bit of color on my brush. I'll go right over the palm trees. Go down to this horizon line right here, where the sky meets the water. I'll avoid the sun area for now. Keep that white, which means I won't put any water on there. If there's no water there, the paint will not spread to it. Okay, so we'll start with our yellow, and we'll just kind of drop this yellow in these stroking motions going up. And we'll drop some orange, like so. Maybe some more yellow in between. I'm going right over the palm trees because these palm trees are going to be a bit darker. Maybe it's not quite dark outside from the sunset scene, but it's just starting. Or maybe it's sunrise even. I'm going to drop some red in here. Maybe that's a little casting shadow of a cloud. Do some orange. Pick up some more yellow. Drop that really deep right here, right in the middle. right where the sun's at. And bring all that across the sky. So essentially this sky is not going to have any blue in it. It's going to be a yellow sky. Just go right against the sun. Keep going. Maybe add some more red. Some more orange. Down here. Grab some more yellow. Yellowish orange. Some more orange up here. And if your paper starts to dry on you, just drop some more water in there. And watercolor paper does buckle. Well, this is student grade watercolor paper, but it really doesn't matter. Most all watercolor paper buckles at some point. Whether it's student grade, professional grade, whatnot, you'll probably run into some buckling at some point. So I'm going to grab some orange and place some just down towards the bottom and around the sun. Sort of moving my brush up here and sort of under the sun like this. Maybe touch more red in the sky. I don't want to do too much to the sky. I want it to be very soft and subtle. Grab some more orange and just sort of streak the orange along the sky. Maybe a bit more over here. Watercolor does dry lighter than when you lay it down. So just be aware of that. Maybe I'll drop a little bit more yellow in here. Some bright yellow around the palm tree. Some bright yellow down here. And just sort of let your brush make these streaky marks across the sky. It'll look cool. Paintings always go through a little phase. Watercolor doesn't matter. All painting go through a little yikes phase. Like, what the heck happened? But just know in the end, your end result is what you're after. And I think underneath here, I will add some bright yellow just along the horizon line. And since it's still pretty wet, it'll blend right in to the sky. Okay, so we'll keep that like that. And what I will do is I do want to add a yellowy sun in here. So I'm going to get it wet and just drop some color in and let it blossom and bloom out inside the sun. Maybe go outside a little bit, dotting it along this. And you can even maybe drop a little bit of red and let that mix up. Pat it around. As long as your paper's pretty wet, can move color around. And then what you can do, if that's blends too much in the background like it is there, you can take a wad of paper towel, and I love doing this, and blot it out. Blot out some of the color. You can even do that in the sky if you wanted to add, maybe there's a few clouds in the sky. If it's still wet, you can blot it out and just let that dry. Maybe we've got some clouds coming up over here. And we'll call that good. Okay, so before we work on the water, let's see how dry this is here. I'm going to dry this off with my heat tool. And then we'll move on to, let's paint the wood posts and some of the grass. And sometimes if the front side is pretty dry, I like to dry the back too. Flatten your paper out, sticking on. And for the fence posts, we're going to do a dark brown color. So what we'll do is we'll get some more of this brown. Nice puddle of it. And I don't know why I keep forgetting this, but I have a spray bottle here. It says help activate your paint. We'll get this brown here. And then we'll mix it with, let's mix it with, I want them pretty dark, so we'll just grab some of this black. And we'll have this blackish brown. It's got a subtle brown hue to it. And we'll just go right along these fence posts. We did drop some wax down on some of these, so you'll see it'll have some funky white spots. It'll make it look sort of rickety, or even like there's some highlights on the post. And I'm just doing this very quickly. Nothing fancy. As you get into the smaller areas, just use the tip of your brush, and then we'll just go along the squiggly line here. Maybe on one side it's a little bit darker where it might have some shadow, so we can just add another line of dark. And then we'll go over the squiggly line down below, just the tip of our brush. Okay, we've got one fence line done. We can go right into the next one. Oh yeah, you can see where the wax is on that. See how it's resisting? Makes it look like weathered wood. And the side's almost done. Paint. And a little rail goes between them. And then we'll paint a line under them, just like so. And that is how you do that. Maybe I'll add some darker value on some spots of these, make it look like you have a little bit of shadow. And there's your fence post. And then what we'll go ahead and do is we'll use some brown. A bit of brown. Maybe it might be a wooden path. You know how sometimes you're walking down the beach and they have your path is, so we'll just make some lines going this way and that. Maybe some thick and thin lines. To get it thicker, you just press your paintbrush down like you're using the belly of the brush like that. And you can even use, as your brush is drying, if you scooch it along, it'll give you a dry brush effect. So it might make it look more like textured wood, if you can see that. And then maybe we'll add just on the edges some more yellow in between, something like that. Maybe drop some of that sand color in there. And leave some light in between. And then I think I'll drop a little bit more color of sand sort of just below these posts. Gives them a little bit of a shadow. And the sand right now looks like it's just really that brown and some yellow. So we'll just go real lightly like this. Something like that. Just make some marks. Doesn't have to be any particular mark. I think that looks good. And then maybe we'll add, this is dry, so maybe we can add some really bright green, greenish yellow grasses. Just sort of flick the grass out in a really quick motion. I'll show you how I do that. Hold on a second here. So we've got some grass pieces here, so I'm just going to add some green. You can go right over the lines that are already there as your guide. And then you can add even a darker green. Some of this darker green, if I can put some of that up. Even mix a little bit of brown with that. And maybe add some of that darker. Oops, if it's not moving on you, get some more water. In the warm summer months, things tend to dry pretty quick. So I've got this nice dark green. On the camera, it doesn't look that green, but it is pretty green. And I'll just be adding some dark, sort of on the bottom. With these blades of grass. Just like that. Some more. However you want to. If you want them brighter, you can make them brighter. Just add some more bright green. If you want them more yellow, add some yellow. I'm just going to add a little bit more brightness. And let's see what the yellow will do. Add some yellow. Let me just drop the yellow in there too. It kind of makes it look like a thicker patch of grass along the beach. Maybe we keep that like that. And we'll go over and do the same thing for these guys. just with the tip of your brush, just flick out some grass. Vary up some color. And add some yellow in there. Then add some, drop some of this dark green in there. Sort of at the bottom. And we'll call that good. And then we'll get into the water. So this is where we'll want some of this turquoise color. I don't know why I always have a problem saying that word. I'm going to mix it right in with my green because the water is going to have a bit of a green hue or a green shadow from the palm trees hanging over. So this is a very pale green. And I'll show you what this looks like. It's really a pretty color, actually. I'm just mixing all the colors that I have in here. It'll add some interest. It looks a little gray, but I'll show you. And we'll set this green color right here in the middle, sort of coming from this angle, going up into the upper part of the ocean. And I'll show you what this looks like when we drop it in. And I'm just doing some wiggly lines like this. And you can even add some deeper green to that. Or a bright green to that. Make it look even more like the palm tree shadows. And I don't know why I did this first, but I just felt like it instead of doing the blue. Okay. Maybe while we're at it, we'll drop some yellow in, just right into that green. Sort of like the sun reflection. That's pretty bright, but that's okay. I like that. And then we'll just kind of go right up and down like this. And that's reflecting the sun. And if we got too much, we can just wipe it off. Or, again, you can blot it with your paper towel. Maybe I've got a little pool of water here. You can just blot it out. Okay, and I'm going to go right into this portion down here and grab some of our dark blue. And I'm actually going to mix the dark blue with the turquoise. So we'll do dark blue. Some of the turquoise. And I have this really pretty turquoise blue going right up into the shoreline. And as you go, you can drag your brush along the part that you already painted with some of that color, make it look like it's got a bit of waves in there. Okay. We can deepen up some of the green. Like it's the palm tree reflection. Sort of and get some of that down. And it will blend. I know it looks pretty bright right now, but you can drop some more blue in there and spread it out a bit. Just interesting colors. And then for the very top, we're going to go in with the dark blue. Now, I think it looks pretty like that too, but as you go, if you want to stop take a look, and, you know, if you like it the way it is, you know, uh, don't add any more color, just leave it be. And I'm going to go right up to the horizon line with this blue, and then maybe come down a bit between the palm branches and right over that green. Right in between here. Sort of avoiding this light area where the sun is reflecting on the water. Maybe I'll drop some more yellow in as I go. I'm going to deepen up some of this blue over here. Maybe add some blue along the highlights, like so. Maybe drag it across a little bit. Okay. And we have some more blue over here. And try not to overwork it, overdo it. We're just trying to play and have fun with color. Oops. Deepen up some of that turquoise down here. Okay. And then what we can do along the sand line is let's sort of go along the edge of the line. You may have some color on there from painting, and that's okay. We're just going to go in and drag some, put some water along the line here. Get that a little bit wet. And then we can go underneath sort of a darker sandy color. Pick up some dark color that you have, maybe. Sort of bleeding. So remember when I said this paper cannot handle a whole lot of scrubbing, so maybe we wait on that until it wasn't all the way dry. I just lifted some color off, so we're going to keep it like that and let it dry. Let's see. Now we'll paint our palm trees. Let's go ahead and get into those. So we're going to go with a dark. Maybe we'll do a brown and blue. Make this bluish gray color, because these will be somewhat in silhouette. So I'll do this one first. If your water's still wet, you may not want to do that. I should have waited, but it's not bleeding in the water, so thankfully. So I'll just stop right there, because if you do it while the water's still wet, this color will bleed into it. So I'm going to go to dry it. And if you don't have a heat tool, you could just let it dry for about 10 minutes or so and then come back to it. I did use a lot of water on this paper, so it is bubbling quite a bit on this one. And since it is watercolor, drying the back, water seeps into the fibers. So dry off the back too. It helps flatten it out. Make sure that is dry. Now we can proceed with painting our palm tree. So I'll just keep going like this. And since it's not quite dark out, you can add brown over the top. Where you can still see about the color of the palm tree. Maybe some brown. Looks like that. And do this one behind it. It's being real loose. I'm varying the color between dark brown and this blackish brown. And then for the palm fronds, I'm going to make them a dark green. So we'll add this bright green straight into this blackish brown color. It's got some blue in there as well from when I use the blue. Just keep adding color. Maybe this red and green. Maybe we mix up some different piles of different values of green. Maybe we'll add some yellow to this one. And we'll have a yellowish green. It's like this. Okay. And we will start painting these guys. Now you can just paint the lines. You can add, make sure you don't get your arm in wet paint like I just did. You can add some palm tree frills to it. And I'll show you how to do that here in a second, but I'll just lay down some color first. Maybe over the blue, we have a dark that used a darker value for coloring up. Like this. Maybe we go along and make some textured marks with the darker color. Like you're adding some palm leaves. Maybe let them droop down a little bit over the lines. Like that. Or you don't have to do this part. You can just go straight in and color what's there. Or you can go and add some frills to it. Maybe just on the tips of these. Yeah, you can do whatever you want on these. I just added some palm fronds coming down. And I'll go in with this backside palm. So something very relaxing about just laying down paint on paper. So our next palm tree, go ahead and mix up some brown. And black. And we'll get this one painted in real quick. It's kind of coming out of the page. Just like so. Okay. Rinse off our brush, go back into our greens, do this bright green, this darker green, and go in and sort of get some yellow in there. Some yellowish green. Some darker green at the tips, maybe. Just vary up your colors a little bit. It gives it some more depth. And we have this little palm tree in the back here. I just splash some color back there like that. It doesn't have to be any form. Just put it on. And there you have it. Maybe we'll add some palm fronds. Sort of go in the direction of the palm tree where it's hanging. Like that. Quick flicks. Again, adding little details as you go, as you want. Nothing too fancy. Something like that. Maybe a few Let me see it on this guy back here, but that's okay. And then this is dry, so I was going to show you. I think I just got my finger in there. That you can go underneath the shoreline a little bit and add sort of a shadow. I did lay some wax down, so it looks a bit rough. But you add sort of like the water is coming into the sand. And this is just an option. You don't have to do this. So I always forget it adds a little bit of watery feature. Maybe just a touch more yellow. Like so. All right, so that's very basic watercolor, very simple, nothing hard about it. And as your paint dries, you can go in and add some details, like I just did here, add some more shadow to your fence posts, make them pop out a little bit more. And anywhere you see you might want to add details. Once it dries, this is the time to go ahead and add those little details. Well, that concludes our 5 beachy scenes or summer scenes, however you want to look at it. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, these are super simple, very basic, very easy to lay down a simple wash of watercolor over these designs. Again, I will work on some more things to come, and I hope you'll join me in the near future. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you soon.